beautiful people. Welcome to Inside and Beyond podcast. I'm your host, Natalia Fomichenko. This is the 30th episode, and I can't believe it's been already 30 episodes, and it's been coming every other week for a year, for the past year. And I'm incredibly proud of this work, and I really hope that you enjoyed the episodes and that you were able to get some new thoughts, insights, and maybe tools on how to improve your life, your daily life, because that's essentially the whole mission of this podcast, to really help you live your best life. And I wanted to share that it might be the case that the first season is coming to an end and something more exciting is coming. You know how they say that you have to close one door to open something new? I will keep you posted on the changes in the new year if I decide to do them, but something tells me that it might be the case. Today, I would like to introduce you to my guest, Kamilla Harra. I found Kamilla after I got inspired from the episode with Bruce Lipton that we did recently. And he has talked a lot about energy psychology and how it is helpful in addressing unwanted programming or unwanted beliefs. And I never heard about this modality before, so I was curious to see and find a person who knows how to do it. So I had a session with Kamilla, and it was a truly fascinating session because it was a mixture of psychology work, body work, and spiritual work. And I felt that she would be an amazing guest for this podcast. Kamilla has a background in psychology, kinesiology. She is an author. She is a soul embodiment coach, which means that she helps people to align their body, mind, and spirit through different modalities such as Psych-K or energy psychology, through channeling. And I think she would explain better than me what channeling means. So without further ado, let me welcome Kamilla.
Thank you, Natalia. Thank you so much. Hello.
As I said before, I worked with you personally, and it was a really, really interesting session. And to me, it was truly at the intersection of psychology and spirituality and also body work, right? So it's this triangle of body, mind, and spirit, which is particularly interesting to me. So could you explain to us more how do these three components come into your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I really can't divide spirituality and psychology fully myself. And if we look at the forefathers of psychology, we have Carl Jung, who, of course, worked with the great mysteries and mysticism. And they have named the superconscious or the higher self, so to speak, or our soul. And we know that that's a component of our psychology, of our psyche. And yes, we can live in life and sort of go, well, we have these primary emotions and then we have a physical world, and whatever else happens behind the curtain, we don't even want to know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But really, if you're working with your own psyche, with your own psychology, and you want to move forward, not including your higher abilities, your higher intuition, your insight, the greater picture of the world and why you're here, you're just missing out. Plus,
Yeah.
in my own life, like that's what saved me from being depressed when I was 19, 18. So, and I can talk more about it, but really it's an integral part of that. And then with the body, you know, a lot of the time we sort of think we're very physical beings because we focus on physical things like, you know, we need to put bread on the table, you know, we need to put our kids through school, and, you know, all these very much like what we see and what we touch is our reality, but it's highly conceptualized. It's not really that we pay a lot of attention. A lot of the people don't do it, at least, and I was one of these people, to how our physicality, our actual like reality interacts with all of these components. So it's all kind of here, like a big bubble.
Yeah.
And whatever's going on in the body, we don't know. And then like somebody has a heart attack, like Suddenly, it's like, it's never suddenly. Stuff was happening for a while. This was
Mhm.
building up. You were getting symptoms. Maybe you were, not sleeping at night. Maybe you were working 12 hours, I don't know, 20 hours a day. Who knows what you were doing? But you were ignoring the physicality. You were ignoring the body, through which, like, we have so many sensory abilities. Beyond the nerve endings, we have energy, that energy communication in the body. If we look at it from like purely scientific perspective, it's 124 times faster for our cells to receive information through electromagnetic and other energy impulses than through peptides and hormones. And that is happening all
Mhm.
the time. So there's this rich network, multidimensional network of communication happening, and we're just conceptualizing about whatever it is. But if we actually go
Mhm.
and feel it, like sense it in the body, we get a lot more clear information about it. It's clearer, it's more precise, there's more data coming in, basically.
Mhm.
And so we have to include the body in order to be effective in growth, in change, in adaptation, in thriving, and relationships, whatever it is that we wish to
Mm.
experience more of. So that's how the three of them do tie together.
Yeah, thank you. And as you were telling this story, I could totally relate because my own journey into psychology and later spirituality also started with a mental health challenge. I had an eating disorder, and that brought me more into understanding my body and understanding psychology, and then later my spiritual quests, and which in the end resulted in creating this podcast to really help people to not only understand life and psyche from the logical perspective, right, but also from intuitive perspective, from other sources of information that we have that may not necessarily fully understand, yet it doesn't mean that they are not there, right? So thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how this podcast essentially, in one way or another, connected me to you, because I have interviewed Bruce Lipton in one of my recent episodes, and he has talked a lot about energy psychology and how it is helpful for reprogramming your old habits, the programs that were given to you when you were a child. And I never tried this modality, and that's how I found you to see how it works. So could you explain to us as much as possible how it works, actually, because I'm sure that people are interested too.
Yeah. So I would love to share even the story of how I came across the modality that Bruce Lipton does talk about, which is
Hmm.
Psych-K. So in my work, I'm, embodying more and more of who I am. You embody more of the world because your body is very aware of the environment.
Hmm.
And I was leading clients who, exactly as you said, were having programming from childhood or something they just, through osmosis, by observing our parents, we absorb a lot of their attitudes towards the world, towards themselves. And they're often emotional attitudes. They're deeply neurologically embedded attitudes in the brain and the nervous system. And I tend to work outside of specific modalities through intuition, through body guidance, through higher awareness guidance. And so I was leading these clients through like deprogramming these neurological blocks in their body and changing their energy. And I could feel like I was doing it for many, many years, that there's something out there that already exists specifically for that, and it's already
Hmm.
working. And I'm, basically I don't need to invent a bike. There's already a bicycle out there. So when I realized it, when I kind of heard it within myself in meditation, I kind of went, okay, well, show me whatever it is, because it feels like it'll be useful for me and it will be
Hmm.
useful for others. And then Psych-K got mentioned twice around me, where it really rang a bell. And I started to research it, and I looked and I was like, I think that might be it. And then it got mentioned for the third time. I was like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get it, the universe. And so I
Hmm.
booked a session for myself and tried out the actual, I was very interested in the techniques, because I realized, even though when I work with Psych-K, for example, I'm really honoring the modality. Rob Williams, the originator of it, channeled or download or co-created it with the universe so that it's not contaminated by other things. Like we only do that. And at the same time, I know that depending on who you go to, you just get a different flavor of a person, even though we all stay within the standards of Psych-K and we do it really to honor it. And so, I experienced the techniques and I was like, oh my God, this like just really perfectly work for me and my work.
Mm-hmm.
And once I've done it, I've done all the modules I could. I kept flying to the UK from Ireland and doing it there as like within 1 year, all of them as much as possible. And I thought, that's it. I don't even know if I need anything else. But, there are other
The
tools that
journey
still come
continues.
in. Yes, the journey continues, but I still use Psych-K when is appropriate. And so the way it works, like there are many, many layers to understanding how it works, but essentially there is the element of muscle testing there, where this is where the body comes in, because our muscles react within like split seconds. We don't actually have the time to overpower the musculature when we're muscle testing to change what we're focusing on, for example, a distressing event in the past. It's going to
Mm-hmm.
like first of all, again, there's the electromagnetic communication, which is 124 times faster than even hormonal. A hormonal is super fast. It's like split seconds. So your muscles will pick it up because it's soaking through your body. It's moving through your system. So their musculature will show the difference when you're testing, and it's a physical test. And depending on what you're thinking, perceiving, or focusing on, and then through the muscle testing, we also always check, and I love and really respect Psych-K for that. We check that it's okay to do this positive change for you in accordance with your everyday mind, in accordance with your subconscious, which is how we mostly operate as humans. Like a lot of the things we do subconsciously, like even moving this hand right now, I'm not thinking about how to move it, it's just happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then with your superconscious or your higher self, if you like. And we make sure that at
Mm-hmm.
these 3 levels, it's all okay. It's in optimum sort of alignment with who you are and where you're heading. And then we can create a change. And it's a neurological change, it's an energy change, it's an emotional change. And then your thoughts change in accordance to how you feel, really. But you could say that we're changing the beliefs, the actual like thought forms as well. Even though
Mm-hmm.
psychology research from the 80s onwards has been showing consistently that we actually mostly record within ourselves an emotional state. And so, if you're like uncomfortable around, let's say, tall, thin people, for whatever reason, maybe somebody, kindergarten teacher was, very
Mm-hmm.
scary to you at some point, around that emotional state you haven't resolved, you will have thoughts such as, tall people are always unpleasant, or I'm short and I'm not empowered, or I don't feel like an adult, or something. Like our thoughts, basically up to 2 or 3 million thoughts can join one emotional state. So
Yeah.
we're changing those deeply seated in the subconscious beliefs and emotions through
How
Psych-K.
are they being changed?
So the actual process uses brain coherence. So whenever you are believing or holding on to something that's not the ultimate reality, and the ultimate reality is that you are in harmony and all is well. So if you believe, for
Mm-hmm.
example, that you're unlovable, like say somebody believes that, obviously it's not true. I mean, of course, we can find somebody that would say, I don't like that person. But
Yeah.
objectively and, like overall, that's just not true as a statement. And so there will be always an incoherence within this person's system because it knows that it's like this being is lovable. Like no animal is questioning their lovability. It's like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a bird, and it's okay.
Yeah.
So, whereas we go, oh, I'm a woman, I'm a man, or I don't know what I am, or I have this hair or that hair, or I am whatever. So,
Yeah.
so the system knows it's BS basically. So a part of it will be not in congruence with you holding this belief. So your brain, even if we did scanning, like in Psych-K, they did do research on brain scans before the balance, before the change from something limiting to something empowering, and after, and the brain looks completely differently. So you'd have this
Mm.
incoherence in different parts of your brain, which will affect your nervous system and, of course, your biology, how you hold yourself, what you do in life, how you react to things, and what actions you take, how confident you feel, etc. And so, through a series of techniques that are designed to bring coherence back in around that topic. So, for example, I am lovable is what would be
Mm-hmm.
the ideal belief. We change that and we do muscle tests to see what is the best way of bringing the coherence in is. And there are many different ways in Psych-K. It's basically a bundle of techniques. And so some
Mm-hmm.
techniques use certain body movements that bring your brain together. Your brain is forced to work together because, we practically have two brains. We have like two big hemispheres, a tiny little bridge, corpus callosum in the middle, and this side, this brain controls this side of the body, and this one controls this one. So
Yeah.
actually, we often can do individual things here and do something else here. So this side might have more of an inclination, for example, towards I'm unlovable, and this one doesn't. So we bring them into full coherence through certain maybe motions, through certain affirmations, through certain, there's always biology used with Psych-K anyway. We're always using neurological kind of coherence. And the person goes through the process for 2 minutes, 10 minutes. Normally it's no longer than that. And then we retest through muscle testing when they again say or think or focus on something that, for example, questions their lovability. And we get a
Mm-hmm.
very different result. They feel different. They kind of feel a bit different sometimes. I don't know why, but their muscles show the truth. They will show that, yeah, everything in the body is in congruence and coherence. There isn't this kind of like disruption going on across the system where one part says yes, the other one part says no. So hopefully that makes
Interesting.
sense.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It connects essentially your mind, which is holding on to a helpful belief,
Yeah.
and then your body that is responding on basically what's happening inside you, as an ecosystem in a way, and it's also spirit in the sense that there is energy that is directing your body movement or life in the broader sense, right? Or like information that is coming out there that, we are supposed to just tune in and listen. And I think you are one of the people who have a very developed intuition, so that for you it's easier to tune in into these information channels and supposedly take this information out there so that to use within this work.
Yeah.
Does it summarize it well or not really?
Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, the Psych-K facilitator, if I put on that hat as a Psych-K
Mm-hmm.
facilitator, I don't have to be particularly intuitive because the muscle
Mm.
testing, yes, if we look at certain research, which I would really encourage if you want to understand, if anybody wants to understand muscle testing better, Power versus Force book is amazing by Dr. David Hawkins. And he really
Mm-hmm.
researched it from a spiritual and psychological perspective. So he had a whole
Yeah, I'll put it in the show note.
institution dedicated to that. And so we do have to be at a certain consciousness level to ensure that the muscle testing is accurate. But around muscle testing per se, there has been a lot of research done outside of that where, it should work. If nobody is really particularly interested in what this person believes in, if I'm testing a client, I don't really, I don't hold this ache that they are believing something about themselves or not, what they do. So when I'm testing them, I'm in a neutral space. So, and their
Mm.
body, their muscles are showing immediately if it's congruent and life affirmative or if it's tearing them down effectively. So
Mm-hmm.
we reconfigure it through biology, through their intention, and through their focus, and through a particular technique that binds it together and leads it in the right direction, again through physiology and energy that's already operating through the body,
Mm-hmm.
and then it creates that change, and we can test it physically. So
Yeah.
and we can test it even, like, again, there is research, and I could locate it if it's needed for this podcast, but there is research in Psych-K that shows like clearly disturbed patterns within the brain when it focuses on a particular phobia. 10 minutes later, after a rebalancing session, they focus on the same stimulus, their brain is not reacting in the same way.
Mm.
So
That's
it's,
interesting.
yeah, so there's an actual, like, scientific, if you will, proof to it. But I've worked with so many clients at this point.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know
of
there
course.
is. They can't board a plane, then they do. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Let's talk about the spirit part of the work, which, as you say, is not that much present in Psych-K, but present in other modalities, right? You call yourself multidimensional channel healer. So I'm curious to understand what those channels are about and how do you use this spiritual dimension in your work?
Yeah, and just before we move on, I do want to say that spirituality is a part of Psych-K because it's very much
Mm.
about reconnecting our everyday mind with our divinity, our higher self. So Rob Williams is
Hmm.
quite insistent on it, but it has a big scientific component to it for sure.
Yeah.
So outside of that, so if I were to attempt to explain channeling, I would have to say that everybody channels. Like a channel is a unique conduit, and we're all unique conduits. So, for example, when you can't solve something and you've never come across the solution in your life before, and logically you're not logicking it out, you're just asking, how is this going to work, how's it going to work? And suddenly when you're like, I don't know, drifting to sleep, or you're meditating, or you're relaxing, this kind of like eureka moment happens, like where it's coming from. And all great scientists that have ever made inventions or create inventions, they say, I didn't create it, I relaxed and it was downloaded into me. Like Einstein is an amazing example of bringing spirit, reality, and science together. Like he was an
Yeah.
incredibly esoteric person and human being and spirit. So we all have a channel, a connection to the greater beyond that, makes your skin cells grow and change, and leaves appear and fall off, and the whole creation of the universe. We're not running this, and we know that. We're
Hmm.
not even beating our own hearts, so what is doing this? And it's clearly a very harmonious, highly organized, and benevolent system. And so you could call that spirit or God or higher consciousness that's
Life
running.
force.
Life force, but it's self-organizing, and it's highly intelligent, and it's beyond what we can comprehend. And as we're a part of it, of course, we're connected with it, and we're actually it. So that connection piece is a channel, so to speak. And it is an informational channel because you receive information all the time. So,
Yeah.
so when people say like, oh, I channel, what they often refer to is either channeling directly, like from source, they would say from the highest point of consciousness in the universe. And because we're so three-dimensional, we kind of go, it's up there and I'm here. But really, like time and space actually bend in the quantum. So everything is happening at once. But yes, we'll say it's the most purest harmony you can get information from, the most truth, basically. And then the way I visualize it in the three-dimensional model is that if we imagine there's the center or the source, and from that source, like a big bang happened, there's this multi-dimensional creation. So at the dimension of physical reality, at the dimension of consciousness, even if you think of the organization on this planet alone, you've got the consciousness of plants that we're only starting to understand that they're all interconnected. We
Yeah.
have social consciousness of different animal groups. Like if a certain percentage of the same species learns something on a different island or continent, the same species starts to do it. Like they don't talk to each other physically. So there must be a network, a channel for that particular
Hmm.
species. And of course, we have the human collective consciousness as well. So that's a channel you could be channeling from. You could be channeling from basically the spiritual realm, where what we might call our higher selves are hanging out, and they haven't incarnated or incarnated and they've gone off, and they might incarnate again. So some people do that kind of work. They talk to ancestors or people we knew but now they're not here. And you can channel tools with, also you could divide that central source into different rays of light with ascended masters, for example, like Jesus, or different types of Buddhas that existed on this planet, and other ascended masters that are not
Hmm.
incarnate anymore. And again, there's no time and space. They can appear simultaneously, as we know from quantum physics, and talk to several people. So it's like, what are you using this channel for? And so what personally I'm really interested in is just the highest truth, and then embodying, which means I'm hearing and feeling it, and so I can check it in reality, my own connection point, which is like the spirit that I am, into the source, because it's always shining from the source. So are we stopping at the
Hmm.
soul level, at the highest level, or are we going even higher? And so when I'm getting this type of information, sometimes I can feel that it's like a neighbor high frequency consciousness that is
Mm.
telling me something, right? So there's this healer consciousness that I've been working with unconsciously for a long time. And I'd say, like, I started to kind of understand it from my mid 20s, because I would just get information, for example, about my mum. She would be dealing with some emotional issues. But at first, I could mostly focus on it if I focused on a page and I was like, how would I write what she needs? And I would get information and then I would write it down. And then I realized I don't have to focus on a page and write it down. I can just close my eyes. And I got these
Mm.
chunks of information for this person. It's like, this is what's happening. This is what's going to help you. Clearly, I'm using a channel and it's coming from somewhere else through my channel. I'm not using the everyday Camilla consciousness, because she doesn't have a clue at 23 what my mom needs, you know. And that happened
Mhm.
to me when I was 12. This is how it kind of, like, when I traced it back, I remembered that I knew stuff like this, we call intuition, you know. I knew stuff and I didn't learn it as knowledge. I just received information. And
So is it like intuition when we suddenly know something, but in your case, you suddenly know a lot of information that you intended to get. So once you focus, you just intuitively know. Or do you hear voices or do you see visions? Like how does it work?
yeah, I don't hear voices. Some people are clairaudient. It's actually quite a rare gift. Um, and I didn't have the visual component for a very long time. It actually used to upset me, like when I got interested in spirituality in maybe, like, I think at 23 or 22. So by 25, I was like, why are people talking about seeing lights and angels and colors and I don't? And then thankfully I
Mm.
got information from, like, people who've been doing it for a while. That's like, some people just, we use different senses more. Like, I have an incredibly strong sense of smell, like physically I do. And I can smell spiritual things and I can smell physical things. Like, I can smell if somebody has an infection in their lungs or in their stomach, or because I can smell it off their skin
Mm.
and breath. So I'm almost like a
Wow.
medical smell intuitive. So I have this Claire nose thing. I forgot the name for that. You know, some people have clairgustance. They can, like, clairvoyantly taste things. And sometimes I do get flavors, you know. So we
Hmm.
have all these different things. So the visual component came later, but it comes in not quite like the way you would see things in reality, so to speak. They come in as per what I need to kind of perceive. And it's like a little image floating in, and I see what, like, it's almost like in a dream where you see certain things, but not like really crystal clear picture. And that's enough for me because, you know, using these, if you will, mediumship or psychic, like, we can put all these labels on them, but ultimately I believe and I know we all have these abilities. It's just we don't focus on them enough. And not everybody needs them in this lifetime or at this moment in their life as well. So for my work, it's very useful. So I don't do what I would call spiritual tourism. You know, I don't go like, what happened there and what happened there? I don't really care.
Hmm.
So I'm like, show me or give me information that I need to know to help this person right now. So they embody their reasoning for coming here and they know as much as they need to know to really be most optimally potent in this life, to really get what they need to be getting and be aware of what they need to be aware of and feel what they need to feel and embody it, and then
Yeah.
bring this consciousness that is at a higher harmony level. So the very, very interesting thing I love doing and why I use this skill ultimately is to reharmonize people I work with and myself, of course, to a higher and higher level of harmony. Because, of course, the highest harmony, if you go into nature and nobody disturbed it, how harmonious is it? It's not that everything is
Yeah.
in squares and organized, but the flow and the overall harmony, we perceive it as beauty. And
Yeah.
beauty is God, as far as I'm concerned. Beauty is the highest divinity in form. And so if we perceive this beauty energetically or emotionally from somebody, we just feel comfortable. We love
Yeah.
being in their energy. We love being in their emotions. And if we perceive beauty and harmony in somebody's mind that operates at all these levels, we just feel clarity. And we know, like, we're starting now in science to totally measure the electromagnetic and other waves from the brain. And we can see sometimes they're coherent, as in they create harmony, as in they're beautiful, and we can sense it. And sometimes they're
Hmm.
all over the place. So
Yeah.
my job is to bring, from a spirit perspective, like, I know what my soul came here to do, thankfully, It's about bringing higher and higher alignment at all these levels for myself, because I need to take responsibility for my journey as well. And from there, I can bring others in their individual pathway to the next level of harmony and awareness. And then the next way. That's why sometimes like our life flows and then suddenly it's like, well, stuff is not working now. Oh my God, stuff that used to work is really not working. Oh my God, what am I supposed to do? And it's like the old stuff has to break down a bit, because it's just not serving us. But we get terrified of frozen and all these childhood things come in and social things come in. It was like, I don't know how to do this, but I'm not trusting to discover what's there. I don't like the unknown. I want to know. And it's like, you can't know yet. So I kind of come in and, if you will, channel the little bits they need to know, or the little bits they need to embody, to not be so afraid of the unknown and to trust more, to trust themselves, to embody their own awareness of their own channel of information, because it's as precious, as unique, as wonderful, as needed here as anybody else's. So if they have a belief that like, I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, definitely we're going to change that, because that's not harmonious as well. So that's what I would use channeling for. And then just to add on, because we have so many channelers coming into the world, more and more and more people are realizing this, you can channel specific light group consciousnesses, which happens with me as well. So it's like, I call them the light guidance. But if I tune into what they are, they're definitely not incarnated right now. And it's like it's so close to the source, or to God, if you like. It is God as well, but it's like it's not directly from the source, because it's nameless, it's shapeless, it's just consciousness and harmony. So it has to be represented for my human mind as something a bit more human relatable.
In between.
So yeah, so I don't see shapes, I don't see forms. I'm not very big into like, this guide looks like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of a beautiful blue person or something. I don't do that. But for my clients, what I find very interesting is that, and I've noticed this from my late 20s when I started to work, first I worked as a kinesiologist actually, that it would come in suddenly for some clients. I didn't work with angels, but it'd be like, oh, and by the way, now imagine that the angels are doing this, this, this. I'm like, why am I saying this? And she's like, oh yeah, I work with angels all the time. Or it would be like suddenly out of the blue, I'd be like, I'm perceiving that your dad did XYZ and he's no longer alive. Is that right? And they'll be like, yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm perceiving if your father were alive, or his consciousness is saying to you, forgive yourself for XYZ. And they'll be like, whoa.
Wow.
So I wouldn't be necessarily looking for it, but all these layers of consciousness, they're available. And as long as we don't get like limited by them and saying like, oh, that's all it is, like the afterlife is just that, or the ascended masters are the only thing, or the intergalactic intelligence, because there are a lot of people that channel, Arcturians and Pleiadians and basically beings on planetary systems that have gone through similar evolutionary arc
Really?
that the Earth has gone through.
No way.
Well, why not? It's an endless universe. Do you really think we're the only ones? That'll be quite ignorant of us to think. So, and they are pretty much discarnate at this point, but because they've gone through a very similar evolution than we have, they already walked the path. Now, I don't have to know where they incarnated and what they did, but again, for my clients, sometimes I would say now the Arcturian element of the Intergalactic Council is speaking, and they'll love it because they work with that. They work with those particular elements. And these people often, and I could say I'm one of them as well. I just kind of don't like to label myself. They call themselves star seeds. So it's like I've incarnated many, many times on such and such star system, and now came and incarnated here to help the Earth at this critical time. So then they're very much like attuned to what's still going on in that part of the galaxy, or even a different galaxy. And some of it is very useful. But what I love to do is to bring people into here and now. Right now, you're an earthling as well. And whatever we believe about how the earth got created and what kind of DNA came here, ultimately, even if some of it was mixed intergalactically to create a human species with the monkeys that were here or whatever else that happened, I don't even ask those questions really, because I don't need to at this point of my journey here. Ultimately, yes, let's embrace the gifts that wherever they're coming from is beautiful, but also we're earthlings. There's plenty here, and we have a lot of potential that is untapped. And if we get very present with what we are right now, we will open up these gifts and start to bring them into reality. And we don't have to give them so many labels, because we just like definitions and labels as humans. We really like
This
to
is so interesting.
understand. Yes.
I have so many questions, but we don't have much time. But just out of curiosity, you mentioned that, monkeys was the stage of evolutionary development, but you have your own answers right now. So does it mean that you have a different theory of how people evolved, or not?
If I were to ask through the channel, I would probably get quite precise channeling information. I would aim really high to get the highest truth possible. My feeling, my intuitive feeling that's immediate is like that, we kind of, because we divided spirit from matter, we look at like, this is what happened. But the thing is, it's happening as a result of the energy shifts. So what's happening at the energy level? We'd have to look at that. We'd have to look at the grand design that is occurring behind all of that, and the steps it's requiring for those evolutionary jumps and shifts and changes. And there are a lot
Mm.
of mysteries. I don't like, in my teenage years, I was really very much into it. But if you look at like secret archaeology and things like that, if you look at certain depictions of pharaohs in Egypt, you will see like their skull, for example, looks very, very different. And they found these very long skulls. So
Yeah,
genetically, where's it coming from? There's a lot.
because they were putting this stuff on the skull specifically for it to grow long, I think.
Well, it's quite long. I don't know if you can force a child's like skull
Mm.
to do that. So that's one of the theories. But also, like, the Sphinx is definitely like at least 15,000 years old, but actually is old. No, it's over 20. They're kind of saying it's over 35. So it's not 5,000 years old. It's a lot older. So what
Hmm.
was going on then? So there's a lot more to this from like a physical reality we could research, but anytime it doesn't suit kind of convention, it rattles a lot of people who have made their dissertations based on that in science. And I think like it's
Yeah.
okay to talk about that, because once you have pride interferes in these things. It doesn't let people discover new things. They're like, no, I know, I actually am a professor of this, so I know. It's like, well, a new data came along, but they can bury it, for example. It's been happening through the 20th century anyway. And I know
Hmm.
people who actually have done it, like back in, for example, in Russia and in other countries, they've done it. So I know scientists from Europe, like from Western Europe, who have buried some research because it didn't suit whatever is conventionally acceptable.
Wow.
So that's a different topic altogether. I don't work with that specifically, but of course, if somebody's
Yeah.
curious, they come to me for inner growth and they want to know it, I might channel it for them, or for their soul,
Yeah. Yeah.
specifically for their human incarnation for this chunk of time. But I consider myself very open-minded, and if I'm perceiving it how I'm perceiving it until I'm proven wrong, basically. I don't want to be
Yeah.
proud and stuck in what I'm perceiving. But at this moment,
Yeah.
I feel that it's a more complicated story than either Darwinism or just world created in 7 days. It's a lot more
Yeah. Yeah. For
complicated than
sure.
that. And it's multidimensional. There's so much more to consider. It's like, again, if you can tell me what's beating our heart, then we can move on from there. But most people, like, we don't know scientifically, actually, because it's not the energy that we eat through food. Like, digesting food takes more energy than the actual energy it brings. So we get energy elsewhere, definitely. So,
Yeah. Interesting.
yeah.
And I've heard lastly that you are embarking on a journey of teaching people on how to get this alignment, right? Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. So I've been teaching for a long time, but I took maybe a year off from working with groups because
Mm.
I could feel there were so many of my own changes and shifts happening. I was going to a different harmony level all the time.
Hmm.
And then the last 2 months, finally, everything is like layered in a very clear, or a lot clearer shape and form, where I've received what it is I'm actually doing, which is optimum divine alignment. So by divine, it's aligned with the highest harmony, or with God, or with source, or with great spirit, or quantum field that's of the highest
Hmm.
harmony.
Yeah.
And it's alignment that's happening for your mind and consciousness and emotions and with your soul. and at the body level and with the earth. So I work at all these it's multidimensional alignment. And whether people come to me with wanting to like correct their financial situation or their relationships or their body health or whatever it is, whichever area you work on, they're all interconnected anyway. So when you reach a new alignment that's optimal there, it's going to affect everything else, because it is your relationship with yourself and with your own spirit, or with overall spirit, with your
Yeah.
body and with the earth. And the earth piece has come in really powerfully in the last 2 months only, because I started doing earth optimal divine alignment. So it just happened spontaneously. I'd go to like a piece of land my friends bought, and suddenly I feel there's this darkness in one point and it has no harmony, and I'd have to like channel what needs to happen there, and then it would all like shift and move, and the earth is like, thank you. so
Wow.
so that earth alignment is happening through me and other people, where we're kind of healing or upgrading pieces of land from which then the earth's highest frequency can come up. So people interacting with it, their level of consciousness goes up. So, and then they're less inclined, I don't know, to pollute or to be angry or to do other things. So it's like, our body is the earth essentially. If you think about it, your mom, dad, they ate the earth and then made your cells, and you continue eating it. So aligning at that level makes you a lot more potent here. You're not floating above your
Mhm.
head, and you're connecting horizontally with society, with people, with the planet in a more conscious way. And you get more potent in what you do, because the earth, through intuition, if you will, through your gut, is telling you who's the right person, the right places, and where to go and what to do. So you need to be aligned at that level as well to be more potent. And again, there are many, many levels of that alignment. And it's always precisely to a person, even though I work with groups. When you sit in a group, it's still done for you individually. And so, yes,
Mhm.
I'm launching my first program. It's really affordable because it's a new modality, and because I'd love as many people as possible to experience it. It's online. It's also a small group in person simultaneously happening in Dublin, in Ireland, if you're in Ireland. And it'll be done over 4 weeks. So by the new year, you will be different. And we're working through the 4 stages and 4 main elements of the earth in your body as well. So the first one is water. So, as spirit, you come into these watery cells. You live in like 80%, 70% of this is
Yeah.
water. It's a water planet. Everything is water. You're inhaling water. Water is everywhere.
Mhm.
So, and it's a highly structurable, highly energy holding mechanism. So it has to do with abundance, with your blood, with your genetics, with any kind of limitations, because it's again liquid, with grief and letting go, letting your old life go. Tears are water as well. So it has to do, the level of conception. The following week is birth. So it's first breath of air. Did you have an umbilical cord? How is your breathing? Were you held? So, and that has a lot to do with like starting and beginning new projects, ending relationships. And
Mhm.
so there's multidimensional levels to all of this. Then there's fire, then there's earth. And earth is very much about being an adult and embodying and coming out of your little nappy
Yeah.
and feeling like
So
an adult.
interesting.
Yes, so we'll be doing it over 4 weeks, starting next Tuesday, the 28th of November. So, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Camilla, for this insightful and wise conversation, and also for all your work that you do. I will put the information about your course into the show notes. And best of luck in everything that you do in your, earthly purpose, as you say it yourself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I wish you the best of luck in your beautiful coaching, which you also do. I don't know if your listeners know that you're not just a podcaster, you're a talented coach. So, best of luck with
Thank you.
that. And thank you for doing this beautiful podcasting work you do as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Camilla.